to say the least. There's a couple things going on. You want to take the Fnatic side?
I kind of want to take the Fnatic side.
All right, let me start off with young generation.
You go ahead, my friend.
We've been talking all tournament long about attacking the enemy team's strength, and as opposed to just kind of maybe trying to work around it or something. Nothing attacks enemy AD carry more than saying, we're going to blind pick Thresh and Draven so that we can destroy your superstar AD carry. And that, of course, did not work out at all for them, and it has been one of the biggest problems for young generation in this game.
Yeah, I think that the bottom lane right now for Fnatic is looking on point throughout this game so far. They've been the main carries, but someone who's been lagging behind a little bit has been in the middle lane, and that is Caps. And when you draft a LeBlanc in this composition, to me, it just raises a lot of question marks. Because number one, LeBlanc into Syndra, very commonly known as a skill matchup. But I feel like there are a lot of safer options that he could have gone for that make more sense from a compositional standpoint. If you want 1-3-1, Corki can fill that role. If you want wave clear, Corki can also fill that role. Who's also another good champion into Syndra. Like, just starting to get the idea that the LeBlanc pick, I feel, was an overconfident move. That,
so here's my question. We talk about it as a skill matchup. If you look back at the first game that Null played, do you think it was unreasonable for Caps to take a skill matchup? Because we did see him struggle in a lot of mechanical scenarios.
In that sense, I would say not really. It can make a little bit of sense. Also, a Nidalee pick is one that it can get very scary if it gets out of control. But if the LeBlanc gets ahead, she has an extra squishy target to prioritize because Nidalee is basically the squishiest jungle champion in the game right now, potentially with Elise. But I can see the idea that if you think you're going to smash this team, that you don't really respect them, the LeBlanc pick is a good pick to style on.
That's a very valid point, Mark. But do you want to know why Fnatic is our Pool 3 team rather than our Pool 2 team? Because they had that same sort of mentality going up against Misfits, and then they ended up getting 3-1.
I like you say Pool 2, like they were never, ever going to beat G2.
We have to be realistic there, okay?
You're not even giving the Pool 1
The
credit.
point is, that sort of perception is what landed them in this position in the first place. And I don't care how hard young generations lost earlier on in the day, their goal was to take every team seriously, and right now, I felt like Cap specifically really underestimated his opponent, and he ended up getting punished for it.
And the thing is, we talk about the Draven being potentially an overconfident pick, the LeBlanc in a similar fashion, but one of those picks is working right now. One of those picks has had a decent amount of impact in team fights. The other one is having trouble doing damage to a Nidalee, which is, one of the squishiest junglers in the meta.
Yeah.
So things are looking a little rough for Fnatic right now.
Yeah, I mean, Nidalee, if she gets ahead, she builds some MR. It's just that the LeBlanc shouldn't be behind. So that's the big problem. And like you're saying, the Draven, it's not like it took off and started doing better in the mid game. It did get some good auto attacks in, threw its ultimate out in one skirmish. That's great, but it really does feel like this came down to both the mid lane play out of Null stepping up hugely, as well as the fact that they, when pushed on making a decision, they were actually able to execute on that. So you have to give your credit to young generation for stepping up here.
You also have to give a lot of onus towards the confidence the young generation is going to feel right now, because a lot of people expected Fnatic to have the same sort of performance that Cloud9 and WE have had, but already in Game 2 of their group stages, they're starting to struggle. They're starting to fall under the pressure. And young generation, based on the current game state, are on track to win out on this game.
And I think the biggest concern is that we're seeing Fnatic, when the pressure is on, now default back to some of the same strategy we saw them use pre-Rift Rivals, which was splitting up the map, hoping that they can outthink their opponent in a lot of these high-tension scenarios, whereas they're coming up on the losing end of so many of the plays that they're initiating.
Yeah, that's what feels like the weird part to me, where it's going beyond okay, maybe our draft was a little, greedy. Maybe they got, some good plays on us. It does feel like a bit of a breakdown with how much young generation is actually getting off some of these plays. It's not like, oh, we just lost the target. It's now like they're running around the map. They're taking our mid inhib. We're losing people left and right. That's where it feels a little bit more of a potential synergy issue for me.
I think overall, though, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what Fnatic can do to get back in this game, because we do see some small individual mistakes. Soaz most recently was just caught out. And now the concern is how do they actually come back into this? What is actually the next step for Fnatic in this team? Because let's be honest, Varus is not a late game scaling hyper carry. I mean, neither is Draven to a certain degree, but it doesn't feel like there's a clear, this one champion will inevitably be a game-winning win condition.
I believe right now, YG, do they still have the Baron, or is the Baron just about
It's about to time out, I believe.
Yeah, so I believe it's just running out. So, because one of the first things I was going to is Fnatic just need to wait for the Baron to run out and stop trying to force things from happening and just accept your losses. Now, the one thing I will give credit to Fnatic for is I think that throughout this game, their vision has been stronger, and they just need to either try and find picks or punish a poor map movement from the side of young generations. But very much so, it's about trying to demonstrate that you can punish the small macro mistakes that Young Generation move in, just find pick after pick and get a few of those kills and gold onto the LeBlanc, because unless she can start dealing damage, this mid laner is not going to have any impact in these future fights.
I think that's the big thing. You're talking about a Nidalee, a Syndra, and a Draven. Those are very immobile. You have a Rakan, you have good chain CC follow-up. If you're able to get the Shen Taunt in there, the Varus ultimate, you can find these pickoffs pretty easily. And especially, you know, like you're saying, wait for that Baron buff to come out, and then wait for the next neutral objective where they're going to pin themselves in a situation. Hopefully you can find a flank. Maybe the LeBlanc is able to get the fight started off, or you're just actually able to land some CC with that Rakan on the back line. That's pretty immobile.
All right, we're talking about these win conditions, but I want to know how likely do we think this is? Because last time we were in the midst of a game, I asked you to give predictions. We felt like it was pretty clear at that point in the game who would come out on top. Once again, we looked for routes out, but Young Generation, definitely not the favorites coming into this game. But we're going to get right back into the casters. We'll see what they think about it.
Thank you very much, Dracos. We are back on into the action. All pauses resolved, thankfully. Very even game here. Zyrene, 1,000 gold lead to Young Generation. Baron relatively soon will be back up. The Cloud Drake up in only 6 seconds as well. Perhaps not the most impactful dragon in the world, but I'm sure Young Generation will want to set up for it.
Yep, but like Vedius was saying, there's better ward control right now for Fnatic. Pretty much across the board, they have 4 control wards down and just a litter of wards everywhere, and they're ready to replace all of them. So they definitely have an advantage in that department, especially with neutral objectives coming up on the horizon shortly. This Cloud Drake, don't know if it's exactly what they want to pick up. Young Generation just seem like the setup is more important than actually starting it up. They've had a window here, and it looks like bottom turret is what they want.
Bitcoin will be able to secure that one for himself. Mid inhib is still down, of course, which is why Fnatic have to be much more on the back foot as Young Generation push forward. Looks like Fnatic are going for another base race here, trying to trade mid tower for this tier 2.
Well, when you're base racing against super minions, I feel like that's not a race.
Just better calls from Young Generation. They are playing the map better than Fnatic at the moment, and Fnatic are not reacting.
And now what happens is you get the Cloud Drake for free after getting that tier 2 turret. Reckless has to back up because they might just be able to come straight through the river. And now this vision will get denied afterwards if they clear it up.
Super good play from Young Generation, definitely stepping up as the second representatives from GPL. Jez is engaged, double charm, here comes Boxer from the flank as well, and we see Fnatic start to collapse. Stand United onto Reckless, but Big Koro is still free to pound away from the backside. Glacial Prism, that's Smithy channeling his inner kills off towards the side as Caps jumps in as well. But Young Generation able to disengage as Fnatic do not find the pick they want.
Now you get to keep throwing spears, keep trying to poke, keep trying to land something here, and then force them out. And you can see right there, they have to back up. Caps, though, looking for damage on Null.
Doesn't really have that much damage at the moment. Soaz is in such a strange position down towards the bottom side of this fight.
Yeah, it would clear the minion wave, and it would force Young Generation to move towards him, which then he could go up, and the rest of his team could collapse down and pin surf. And that's exactly what you would want to have if you're Fnatic, because they have a superior front line with 2 frontliners to really the one on Young Generation. But yes, Baron up in 15 seconds. You want to get those backs in now if you can. Checking gold right now, 1,700 on the Draven, 1,200 on the Syndra, and 1,000 on Venus. Right now, there's more spent gold on Fnatic's side, and they're looking for that Fnatic brush.
Gonna see if they can set up around Young Generation. Here they go from the side box, jumped in, looking for Pallet. That Thresh, still very tanky though, as they knock Fnatic back. Young Generation perhaps want to re-engage now as Ren goes to the front line. A charm from Jez, a 5-man charm, the knockup. Big Car still alive, and he's gonna pound away on Caps. Ren dead, 2 dead from Young Generation. Fnatic able to collapse, able to get the fight they wanted.
And Null with a beautiful scout of the week there, but it still wasn't enough, and Fnatic are now on the inside track to the Baron to give themselves an advantage.
And this Baron will be exactly what Fnatic wanted, exactly what the Doctor ordered for them. Them hearts were stopping beating there. They were going into asystole, but the diagnosis was death for Ren as Pallet and him died in that last fight. The Baron for Fnatic will be secured, and they will be able to look to push towards the base of Young Generation.
You can hear the cheers. Definitely some Fnatic fans in the crowd. And this right here was Fnatic setting it up. They don't get the ward in the bush. They don't see this completely coming. But then the big parts here is Jez's to the back line. They've set it on the desk. Look at that charm. That hits everybody except for the very back line. And then comes through, and no ultimate up just yet. It was 1 second away for Ren before he would have that team fight splitting ultimate with the explosive cask.
A game of vision once again, Zyrene, as Fnatic were able to set up their trademark vision bush. They caught Young Generation out, and now will be looking to start to close out this game. Young Generation have put up an incredibly strong fight, and it's not over for them yet. They still have not had their base broken by Fnatic.
And we had a long conversation about, why you would feel Fnatic are still in this game, just because all the engage, all the potential for picks that they have is very high. Everybody on this team could set up and engage on Fnatic's side. Anybody could catch anybody else out. And Young Generation, with the low mobility 2 carries with the Syndra as well as the Draven, and the vulnerability that the Nidalee has when she's sieging, is very high. So catching somebody, quite easy to do.
However, we have got the Ardent Sensor on Venus now, so he's going to be able to empower Big Koro even more. Still, an unkilled Syndra in the mid lane has a needlessly large rod to add to her items, and although it took him ages, Pallet has completed the Locket of the Iron Solari and the Knight's Vow.
The Knight's Vow coming through. We'll see who he ends up linking to, because right now the Draven looks like target to do it, because you would be like, all right, makes sense. Yeah. But right now, Null's having better game.
Koro now
King
on
Koro.
that Draven. I wonder what you would actually say in the Knight's Vow if you were doing that. I will protect you if you give me life back. That's
My
right.
liege.
Pallet is now the squire for the Draven. One of his many adoring fans. Cap's trying to jump onto Null, pops the Banshees, and 1-3-1 has been established here by Fnatic. They look to push in with their Baron buff.
Yeah, and using that Baron buff to its fullest effect. Caps.
For someone who went 0-2 in lane and got absolutely destroyed by Null, Caps is being very brave with some of these
He's been brave since the pick, right? He's been very aggressive, and it's backfired on him, and now he's finally finding an opportunity to leverage a TP advantage. Because if he's able to chunk him out, it allows him to TP and make a play somewhere else. So he's just looking, testing, trying to make sure something could give and try to give his team that advantage. Because right now, this is just a Baron that allows the waves to push up and get fed to the enemy team. Yeah, Soaz looking for the flank here, and this will be a turret going down, as they have to respect it.
Have to respect the ability to flank in the TP that could come in from Caps.
Whoa,
Back with the scan of the wing,
no!
unleashed power!
Blasted!
There is a new fragrance on Summoner's Rift. It's bodied by Null in this game. Get one every Worlds. This time Null brings it down.
I mean, Null could be just the person who's giving it out, because now he's got a ton of Essence of Caps to give. Whoa.
Null the clone. As Young Generation once again get the pick, and it's something you do not want to see from your rookie mid laner. Over-aggressive plays, not respecting the enemy mid. Null is someone who wasn't really known that much before this tournament. Imagine if that was Faker. Imagine if that was Bjergsen or Jensen. Null is bodying him. How much more could anyone else? And Fnatic now looking down the barrel of defeat as they lose their mid laner once again.
And that is just such a boon for Young Generation. Fnatic has been winning those side lanes, especially the bottom side, but it's that mid lane that got opened up. That's the inhibitor that's down. They get to revisit it. Null has been so key. We don't get player of the games at Worlds because no MVP points, but Null definitely be earning it this game, because that is 2 solo kills in his lane against his opponent, smashing him.
Fnatic will be able to set vision up around this Mountain Drake. Something they have done well, even being on the losing side, being able to get vision down. They will try and secure this one. And once again, it's Caps who's going, oh no, it's not, that's the Mimic. Yeah. I was caught out, perhaps Ren will be caught out by it as well.
But the LeBlanc gives you vision of that area as she walks through. So I like that. It gives them an idea of, are they contesting it from the backside? The answer was no. And we're at an even game again. 2 Drakes to 2 Drakes. But that inhibitor in mid is the thing that I really pay attention to here. Young Generation just have more pressure naturally mid and don't have to answer all of Fnatic's pressure with equal amounts, unless it's 5 people like they're doing right now, and Fnatic are just trying to push it.
That is a weak power play with a Baron. 2,000 gold, they got a couple of towers out of it, but that was it. Whirling Death comes down, the knock-up used by Jez as he has to flash away and uses the quickness.
Whoa.
That is huge for Fnatic. That's one of their engage tools down.
Yeah, that's a big engage tool for them. But remember, they have so many that they could actually potentially use. And there's this gigantic wave on the top side. So if you're Young Generation, push mid, push it down, go top with this gigantic wave, clear the jungle, ward it up on the way, and this is going to pay off in spades, because once you get these wards down, Baron up in 1 minute and 45 seconds, these will last until you go and try to get that Baron.
Caps went down towards bot to clear it out. He is backing now, so he will be with the team, but perhaps it's too little too late. A Young Generation can push towards this tower. So as there, Boxer with the flank as well.
You got to do something now. There's 20 seconds, though, on Jez's ultimate. Broxa.
Onto Broxa, Chain of Corruption comes out, Soas trying to get onto Nor, but meanwhile Big Koro is still alive in the backline. Soas down to half, Fnatic holding onto this tower with their lives.
A pause as Big Koro is stepping forward and, oh.
That is an unfortunate time for us to pause. Of course, the players know that they only pause in situations where it's game-changing or impacts the play, so definitely a solid reason for the pause, I'm sure. But
yes.
How close is this game, Zyrene? Hanging purely on the edge of an axe, you must say.
Yes, absolutely. Edge of an axe, it seems pretty, wait. It's got to be a super sharp axe. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I see what you did there. Okay. But yeah, Big Koro, he's forward. He just got hit by Sejuani. He's up in the air, and the rest of them are ready to collapse. He does have Mercurial Scimitar. He does have Flash. He does have Heal. But you have to think this came out because of something that was going on with Big Koro at that moment.
It's always a possibility. We have used Chrono Break before today, so we know that's there if necessary. I'm sure the league officials will be doing everything they can to rectify the situation. Want Young Generation and Fnatic to have the best chance of winning in Wuhan.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's all about competitive integrity and what's been going on. But still, in this moment right here, definitely you don't want to be in it as either team, so don't know exactly what's been going on and what caused this.
Let's come back to the state of the game, though,
yes,
because
please.
Young Generation have been so adamant in this game, so indomitable at times. I thought, personally, again, that after the 25, 30-minute mark, when we started to see Fnatic winning fights, when we started to see this composition really come online, Young Generation would collapse. But time and time again, we've seen them make catches. Caps has been called out by Null, and every member of Young Generation steps up to the plate when needed.
Yeah, every member so far. Like, we've seen some engages from Ren. We've seen some disengages, and really, I'm looking at Big Koro kind of because I feel like Pallet as a playmaker stepped up. I feel like Null got those solo kills. Venus has been, and now Big Koro has to match Reckless, we talk a lot about what's going well for Young Generation, where they have a mid Syndra that's 3-0-4 with 325 CS. Reckless is 3-0-4 with 398 CS. He is 2 away from 400 CS at 36 minutes, and he's almost full build. He just needs to complete his Mercurial Scimitar, and then he's there. So Reckless, that's why he's so reliable. The 10.6 CS per minute, the MVP award, all of that. A lot of that, you're just like, okay, KDA is a thing, but at the same time, consistency, reliability, knowing that no matter what happens in the early game, they will be able to accrue that gold, and then when you get to that later point, you're in a very good spot.
And winning lane even when you're not expected to win lane, or going even in lane when you're not expected to go even in lane, is the mark of a truly great player, and Reckless does that so consistently. Jez is there as well, of course, aids him, and the Fnatic team has been based around Reckless for a very long time. His last foray at Worlds wasn't as effective as it perhaps would have liked it to be, but this time he's given himself much more of an impetus. He's overcome a lot of challenges this split and is now looking with a very positive outlook at this Worlds tournament. And Fnatic generally are looking very positively at play-ins and saying, yes, it's a great time for us. We want to take it game by game. And they need to against oppositions like Young Generation.
Yeah, especially when this is a game that you were expecting based off of what's been happening with the #1 seeds versus lower seeds, and also looking at what's been going on with Fnatic earlier in the day versus Chaos Latin Gamers and Young Generation versus Chaos Latin Gamers. You wouldn't be expecting this. Chaos Latin Gamers beat Young Generation.
They demolished them as well. Like, you look at the statistics from that game, and Young Generation really weren't able to put up too much of a challenge as the game got later on. They had some moments of brilliance, but you have Nor going 1-2-4. You've got Venus going 1-2-2. Ren got destroyed in the top lane on that Renekton, really wasn't able to do anything in the game.
But the things you can kind of sift through and look at, be like, oh, you look at Null CS, he's actually almost 70 up above Plugo in that game. And so you can see, even when things are going poorly, this is somebody who could CS in bad situations and would be a comeback tool, right? If somebody doesn't have those basics and those mechanics, then it's much harder to lean on them as a clutch player and be in those positions. But the fact that he just got so far ahead in this game has kind of opened it up for them, and is really, since it's mid lane too, really makes it that central part of the map that Fnatic have been struggling with.
Unfortunately, we are still in the pause, guys. We're going to hand it over to our prediction kings on the analyst desk. Dracos, take it away.
Thank you very much, Medic. Welcome back to the analyst desk, everybody.
I'm sure they can't wait to see us again.
They're actually just here for Vedius, Marcy. I really hate to break it.
I can go. You know?
Everyone's waiting for my interpretive dance of how Caps plays this game.
I would like to see
Is that just
Can you
playing
show us?
dead? Is
like,
that where you yeah, you
Well,
speaking
speaking of,
stay down there.
let's take a look at some of the early action coming in from Caps, because inevitably it has been a really rough game for this guy, and I think going into the specifics is going to be important to figure out exactly why Fnatic is struggling in this game. So when we get that First Blood replay up on your screen shortly, you can see kind of where this game really felt like it started to go wrong, and really for Fnatic, once again, we did not expect it to be individual mistakes.
So just really quickly, you should never really go for a trade like this into a full minion wave that is not even in your favor. Like, it's just a really greedy move where he's trying to assert some kind of dominance, and it ends up backfiring in his face.
Yeah, it was just poorly played. I mean, he had flash up, didn't flash the Syndra Q, didn't think it was going to connect on him. He gets picked off in the side lane there. And the big thing was for me was it was not only that he got that solo kill early on, but it was the CS difference too. It was 18 at 10. So Null was really playing well after we had thrown a fair amount of criticism at the first game of the day where he was missing a lot of combos on Syndra.
And to be fair, 10 minutes is the easiest mark to track, but he had an even bigger CS lead coming into that 1v1. So he was dominating that lane even before Caps tried to go in for the all-in, which I think is a huge credence to him. And of course, that final replay, honestly, Syndra is so far ahead, there's not a whole lot you can do in that scenario, but Null absolutely earned that because he earned that lead in the first place and then made it keep going home. And here, as we look later in the game, it does feel like there were a few instances where Young Generation overstepped. However, at the end of the day, it still feels like they're coming out on top in a lot of these exchanges.
Absolutely. I mean, this is off the back of a pickoff that they got initially onto Broxa. They were baiting the Baron, and then they turn on the Baron. Very risky call, but I actually like these kinds of calls from teams that are considered from the emerging regions, not the favorites. You're trying to go for an upset, and it's very difficult to just straight out prove directly, like, we are the better team than Fnatic, so I'm fine taking more 50-50 focused plays here, because that play is what ends up giving them the tempo advantage to be able to charge up mid lane and take that inhibitor.
Yeah, they got a lot of control over the map, but it also resulted in, or you're also able to see Young Generations in their proper inability to know how to use objectives to turn things even more in their favor. So the thing is, like, if you're Fnatic, you have no smite because you've just lost your jungler. You only have 4 members, and Young Generation have 5. They're in the better position, and Fnatic have to make a choice between trying to contest you for that Baron or giving it up. And Young Generation could have used that to turn and burn and suddenly turn that into a massive fight in their favor, but instead they go for the risk. It ends up falling apart, and while, again, it does turn overall as an advantage, it could have been an even better situation for them, but it's just that slight difference in experience between the two teams.
Interestingly enough, before we came back from the previous break, we did say, hey, how do you win this game if you're Fnatic? It looks like they're behind, they are struggling, they don't have simple win conditions. This next fight shows a little bit about what we talked about in terms of you have a pick composition, try to find a pick, except in this case, it wasn't a pick. It wasn't a pick, it was more like we're going to start this team fight in a perfect choke where we get to use all of the AoE.
Well, even if you don't find quite the pickoff that you were hoping for, you still, like we said, have good engage. If you can land it onto the immobile backline here, and you see multiple members on the side of Young Generation are going to step up, and that's right when Jezza sees his opportunity, goes in, gets the knock up onto 3 men, huge amount of CC, and allows the backline of Fnatic to keep putting out their damage. They're able to win this fight with 2 kills, which allows them to grab the Baron. Should put them in a position to start closing this game out, but more mistakes coming in from Caps.
And very crucially, there is the well that they took out the smite from the equation too, so there's no risk of a Baron steal, and even though they weren't immediately able to kill the backline, they killed the targets that they needed to, and it was just thanks to a lot of the stacking CC and overall a really good engage coming out from Jezza.
So ultimately, I don't expect us to completely know the reason why we keep seeing individual members of Fnatic getting caught out, but it is happening surprisingly consistently throughout the course of this game. And so I want to just talk a little bit about what is going through Fnatic's head. Do you think what is the reason why these players are overstepping in scenarios where they may not have to?
I'm not exactly sure why they're doing it, because that most recent pickoff that ended up happening onto Caps, you're playing the side lane versus Syndra. The point of doing that is not necessarily to kill the Syndra on the side lane. You do that when you're really far ahead, but you can do that still from behind, pull people towards you, and then utilize the fact that you have teleport advantage and maybe look for some things that you can potentially get pickoffs in the mid lane by getting there first. And it feels like Caps feels overly focused on the 1v1 and less about what I can do to help my team.
But I also think it's an element of frustration on multiple levels. The fact that Caps, he's now underperforming. He realizes that his performance has put Fnatic in this early deficit. The issues that are occurring right now is always going to be frustrated regardless of the situation. And it's one of those instances where Caps is trying hard to remedy the situation that they're in, and he's not properly thinking things through. He may not be properly communicating with his team, and it's like when you have such a dominating game one and then you transition into, hang on, this is supposed to be another easy game for us. Why are we performing like this? Like, these levels of frustration will stack up, and it comes back to that mental fortitude that we were talking about earlier on. Fnatic realized in their semifinal loss that the mental fortitude was not that strong. It needed to improve, and while I'm sure it has gotten better, you're still seeing remnants of how it can affect Fnatic.
And it also feels like it hasn't been tested since that point when we look back. And my big concern is Broxa and Caps. These guys are both rookies. We don't bring it up as much because we know they both had experience on a bigger stage, but maybe does it feel a little bit like the world stage is getting them? Because ultimately, Broxa feels like he's playing scared again. Caps feels he's like he's maybe trying too hard to make outplays, and we have to wonder, you know, the veterans are still mostly in the right place outside of Soaz getting caught in the side lane. Is this kind of rookie talent maybe crumbling a little bit under the pressure they're in front of?
Could be. I mean, you saw on your screen there Soaz looking a little contemplative, I guess. He was very sullen looking, and it feels like these pauses aren't really doing Fnatic much good, that they have to keep pulling themselves out of the game. If you're doubting yourself, let's say if you're Caps, you feel like, oh man, I got solo killed, I should be doing better, and you're not taking this time to recenter yourself, it actually can be detrimental.
Yeah.
And of course, just as an update on the pause, it is due to a player bug splat. Wow, that was a struggle to get out. And they are attempting a chrono break once again, so we'll keep you guys updated as to how that is going. But, I mean, in the past, there was another situation where we had a pause in Europe, and of course, I talked to Reckless about this, and he's talked a lot about, hey, you have to stay focused, because ultimately, during this time period, you're tracking flash timers, you're tracking, you know, when Baron is respawning. Luckily, some of that's tracked in game for you now, but you have to stay focused on the game throughout all this time, because you come back in, nothing is different, right? Outside a game, you're waiting, you're sitting, you're anxious. And that just feels like a lot of pressure on these guys.
Yeah, you have to be thinking about your win conditions, who's strong, who has what abilities up. Like you said, the flashes, can we go for an engage here? That kind of stuff is pretty hard to track in-game. And when you have to worry about, oh man, like, I'm getting in my own head about my confidence, it's one of those things where it's sometimes nicer just to stay in the momentum of the game and keep trying to ride that instead.
And I believe the situation that Fnatic are in right now is that a fight was just about to break out around a young generation trying to siege into their own base. So they're definitely in a situation right now where they're on the back foot slightly, and you're trying to engage a fight no longer in a choke point, in a fairly open space, that LeBlanc is trying to get onto the back line, and she's not really that strong too. And you've also got Null, who seems to be having a spectacular game just for himself so far. So you've got all these situations also stacking up against you, and you have to wonder how that affects Fnatic. Like, Caps could be thinking to himself, ooh, how do I turn this situation in our favor? How can I still win this fight for my team? And you just got to think, like, how much does that weigh on the young player for Fnatic?
And I want to talk a little bit about the young generation side here, just because it can sometimes probably feel bad for them too. Like, we're finally upsetting a #1 seed. This is great. We had a rough first game. We stuck with our style. We picked the Syndra again. All this stuff starts working out better. And then these kinds of things happen, and you have to take a moment to pause, and you feel like you have good momentum. You're trying to play probably this fast-paced kind of helter-skelter game where you just want crazy stuff to happen, and every time there's a pause, that slows down. So I don't think, you know, either team is too happy about it, but it's going to be about who, coming out of this pause, can figure out exactly what they need to do.
Yeah, who can stay composed, right? Because I think you're right to a certain degree, because the young generation, they're putting on a performance.
Oh, they are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, much, much stronger than they looked earlier in the day, but luckily we're going to continue to see that performance as we get back in the game.
And immediately, Chain of Corruption's going to come out onto Pallet. There's the Glacial Prism as well. The fight is started, but a great stun with the Scout of the Week. The knock back as well. Unleash power onto Reckless, Soaz, and Broxa in the midst of the fray. Jess is there as well. Young Generation on the front foot, trying to catch onto Caps, who has got the chains down. The hook lands as well. Now Young Generation realize they cannot take any more of this action. And back away from Fnatic. Caps not done. Says hello to Big Kuro.
Welcome back, everyone. So, the game's still as intense as ever, and you can see Fnatic has so much time to be like, all right, this is how we're engaging, and Young Generation being like, all right, how are we disengaging this? And it pans out for both teams. Right now, 50 seconds on that Baron. Priority to Young Generation because the mid lane has been pushed up by super minions, and they've been able to establish vision on that top side jungle, and now they get to reset their wards.
Do you like camping, Zyrene?
I actually hate camping. My dad took me camping a whole bunch. It's mosquitoes, there's like bugs everywhere. I hate it.
It's a shame because this game is intense as Young Generation will be looking up towards that Baron. 30 seconds on it. They want to get vision control. They've got a couple of deep wards from that push that they just had in the top lane. Mid inhib is still down for Fnatic as well, so they're going to have to deal with those supers alongside Young Generation looking for this Baron.
Yeah, it makes it so it's much harder to push up, much slower to push up, as you can see, and that gives Young Generation an inside track. They can put down control boards, get to look for picks with the Syndra.
Reckless now gone Ginsu's and the Wit's End as well.
Yep, full build.
Something that we see very commonly on the Varus and on Kog'Maw. Works incredibly well as a combination, but Big Koro has 4 items as well. Fnatic now stepping into the unknown, unaware that Null was around the corner, and some good damage onto Soaz and onto Jezis, who is one of the primary engage tools, of course, for this Fnatic lineup. The pause hasn't seemed to affect either of these two teams as they are both
Ren TP behind. He was looking for it. It's going to come down.
Here we go. The TP
Here's
behind.
the fight.
No vision. Here comes Ren. The chain's going to land, but Ren jumps straight in, knocks Reckless in the wrong way, and now Ren is actually caught off at the back. Young Generation trying to get to their top laner, but he is left out to dry. Reckless gets the kill. Caps jumps onto Big Koro, double chains, but Big Koro turns it right back around in his face, and Caps has to jump away.
The fact that Ren went in and then he messed up the combo. Reckless didn't have flash. Reckless only had QSS to try and get out of a knockup / stun, and he was able to get out just barely off of a misplay.
But this game is still on a knife edge as Null looking for Caps. He knows Caps has gone for those flanks. Null just needs an unleashed power. Caps would not survive. Only the Mercury treads, only that meager amount of magic resist. Fnatic still with the man advantage, and the Stand United can now set up around the Baron. They clear out the vision and they start it up. Caps off towards the side, looking for the flank. Onto Null, jumps in with the Banshees, but here comes the unleashed power.
My God!
Caps, Stand United just saves him though, and still Fnatic on the Baron. Are they going to do this? Because Caps has TP. Caps come back. Here comes Soaz. He's teleported in.
Spirit going in.
HP. Venus jumps in, but they target him down. He doesn't quite get it as Boxer secures it. Now Fnatic still looking for the fight, as Pallet perhaps is caught out here. Caps coming in with a teleport, and Pallet knocked up. He's going to get taken down as well. The stun into the damage from Reckless. A kill for Fnatic, a Baron as well, and perhaps that is the game for the European representatives.
It might be in the future, but right now they've had super minions just stop spawning in mid for Young Generation. Their inhibitors back up. They got the Baron off that play. I don't think this is over just yet. I feel like we got a lot of time.
I'm getting too eager. I'm getting too eager.
We've been sitting here for like almost an hour, and there's been 40 minutes of gameplay. The game feels like it's much further along than it is, so I don't blame you. The death timers are lower than you would think because it's been so much real life time.
And you have to think for the players as well how much that must weigh on their minds, because they've been in this state of mental jousting for an hour now, and the long pauses where you're not able to talk to your team as much, you're not able to discuss tactics, you have to just try and keep your mind in the right spot.
Yeah, and I love what you did before where we take kind of stock of flashes. Jezis has his, Reckless about to have his, Caps, Broxa, all with them, and same with Soaz about to have his as well. And this Elder Dragon is in 20 seconds. Fnatic upper hand right now in this fight.
Caps also just got a Zhonya's as well. Works into the unleashed power. You Zhonya's it, you don't take the damage, and then you can look for some more of your own. Could have been a Banshees, but instead goes for the Zhonya's.
All the rain!
The engage all the way onto Null, but he cleanses and flashes away. 2 summoners down on that mid laner now, and Fnatic still have time to set up for the Elder. An Infernal and a Mountain in their back pocket.
So what they got there is they got the flash out of Jez's, but Null had to use both of his summoner spells. So they don't have that same long-range engage, but remember, this quickness is now down to about a 60-second cooldown. This thing is fast in terms of how quickly it comes back. It's 48-second cooldown. Ridiculous that he can keep doing these engages every 3/4 of a minute.
Fnatic will start up the Elder Dragon Ren there. We've seen steals of Dragons and Barons alike. Soaz standing in the bush, gets warded up. The hook lands as well. Soaz did use the taunt as well as he jumps through Ren. There's the chain of corruption. Jez is going to jump in. Boxer with the Glacial Prism does hit onto Pallet, but he's pretty darn tanky on that Thresh. And now Fnatic, having burnt a lot of their ultimates, need to be cautious about staying around. Reckless is all by himself here. Caps has a flank.
Yeah, Caps went over to try and flank. They're pushing Soaz up to the top side. Caps now on the left side of this fight. That's a low Elder Dragon. It's below half. There could be burst coming through and it resets.
It resets, you can hear the audience.
But not completely, not completely. They're walking away. Venus is now, they're gonna try to burst it.
Venus can't quite get there, Boxer does secure it, and now Soaz is looking for the flank, has the flash, has the taunt. 3 members of Young Generation lining up for him. Caps lands the chains onto Noel, and there's the taunt. That is a shutdown on to the Syndra, and Young Generation just able to escape from Jez's. Caps still has that flank position. Koro, Zonyas keeps him alive, but Koro will escape to the top side, and Fnatic need to just accept that they got the Elder Drake and look for a push.
Yeah, Caps there with the Zonias, because that could have been a crit coming through. We think back to when he actually flashed away from the previous ultimate from the Draven. Didn't work there, just learning from. That's that first death for Null, because they went all in on him without those summoner spells that Jez has gotten. Oh my god, Soaz got so much HP from that with the Spirit Visage.
And Fnatic from nowhere have now got a 7,000 gold lead. They're going to break 2 inhibitors here. Young Generation haven't collapsed, but Fnatic have been able to take advantages, being able to pick off 1 member and snowball that away from the Young Generation squad.
Now look at this second inhibitor here. And that opens up so much for them. Like you said, the game was close, but then that Baron went over to Fnatic after the skirmish, and then they had that team fight just now at the Baron with the flank. They're setting them up better, and they're executing better with their engage.
Young Generation will take a lot of hope from this game, though. Although it's currently looking like they'll go 0-2 on day 1. Could still, of course, beat Fnatic in this game. Don't want to totally count them out of it. But challenging Fnatic like this is a breath of fresh air for them, and they'll look at tomorrow and say, we can take out Chaos Latin gamers. We can at least get that tiebreaker for ourselves.
And it may just be a little bit of that wake-up call for Fnatic early. If Fnatic end up going down in a game like this and not losing it, they'll have that sigh of relief, but be like, hold on, we still have to keep true to their promise of taking it 1 game at a time, 1 match at a time. Because the desk was talking about it, where it just seemed like some overconfidence from Caps, but also the team not playing through mid gave Young Generation a lot of rotational advantage.
And Young Generation just seemed to be that step ahead throughout the entire game. We saw base trades where Young Generation were taking an inhibitor, and Fnatic weren't even getting an inhibitor tower, or even just only getting the inhibitor tower in the bottom lane.
And now with the 1-3-1 that Fnatic have, they have the double TP, much easier to exploit. You can see that Young Generation are trying to keep Super Minions out of their base by meeting them almost halfway. Now the Elder Dragon will wear off, and now what are they going to do with this? Because the 1-3-1 will start pushing you apart.
Do you just have to pull the trigger? Do you just have to engage and say, we'll burn both of your teleports and try and get out, or burn both your teleports but already perhaps have killed someone?
Well, remember, Ren tried that with his TP flank. There's no real flank wards on this top side that's set up for him with the vision that Fnatic has, so it's good from them to be, putting their due diligence in their sweepers.
Cap's able to dodge the scattered weak there as well. Of course, so vital for him that he comes back after losing a lot early on and getting caught out a couple of times in those 1v1 matchups. Fnatic with a 9,000 gold lead are just looking to close this one out, but Young Generation have put up a magnificent fight thus far.
Yeah, we're seeing 6 items for those 80 carries. Mid laners are approaching that as well. This gold lead really hasn't manifested too much. Like, I'm looking at these item differences, and I'm not seeing too much of a difference here. Ah, okay, yeah, because 5,000 of that gold lead is Reckless, and he's full build. So Reckless isn't going to get any stronger. He's actually sitting on 5,000 gold in his inventory.
And he's got 545 CS as well at the 45-minute mark. At some point, you just can get no stronger in League of Legends. Pallet looking for the hook on Soaz, can't quite connect with it. Still this inhibitor tower at full HP, but the super minions are pushing in to the base of Young Generation and will continue to force them back.
Yep, 20 seconds on that Baron here. And that's why they have control of this top side. They're just sieging it, making sure that the super minions push bot and mid. And now, this has been good because you've had control of this area for 3+ minutes. You know there's nothing here from Young Generation. It's completely dark, no flank wards, nothing. They're gonna have to face check, walk up, and it's super risky, but here's the teleport.
Yeah, Ren's teleporting in. Young Generation looking for a final foray into battle against Fnatic. Hook onto Boxer, not the target they wanted, but still, Fnatic have not
TP
started
bot.
the Drake.
Soaz split. They saw him TP away, and there's a big wave there. And Soaz still has Stand United to get back in, so he's going to pull Ren here. But Ren can't actually just stay here because he would have to match the teleports. This is Fnatic trying to play the map. Yeah, this is exactly what they're doing. They're trying to pull them thin. The Syndra isn't there. There's the TP.
TP from Caps. Venus is here, has landed a spear on the Baron, down to 6,000. He's looking for the steal. Jez's They're in the front line. That's going to be a Baron for Fnatic. Great play from them to pull apart Young Generation's defense.
Yeah, it required Null to stay there. And because he wasn't up at Baron, they were able to take it pretty easily. And so good macro play from Fnatic with an advantage. It's easier to pull off those macro plays when you have an advantage, but it's good to see that they leverage it, because you saw Young Generation with Barons, with the map advantage, not be able to grow that over Fnatic because they were scared of the engage.
It's good to think that they were still able to think about these plays, considering how long that pause was and how much it must have weighed on their minds. Still in a position where they're not fatigued. They still have a lot more left in the tank in this game against Young Generation. Young Generation perhaps looking a little bit worse for wear as Fnatic now push in with the Baron towards this inhibitor tower in the top. Big Koro, Venus, Pallet, Null defend.
Inhibitor's coming back up now, and you can see the 1-3-1 still in place for Fnatic, the slippery LeBlanc, and then the 3 members on the top side. Yep, just keep doing this.
Inhib is down to half, Soas joins it up as well. Still that inhibitor down in the bottom lane, so they can look for this 2-man stack. No minion wave there yet, but Caps takes a chunk of HP from Big Koro, who has forgone boots in his build, going for a GA instead.
Caps on the bottom side now, and they're just rotating around. That top has been a little bit difficult for them to break, but they're just getting damage and chip damage on these inhibitors. Mid already falls, and now this bottom one is looking as well.
Just League of Legends by numbers for Fnatic here. They are painting in the happy little trees, making sure they have the rocks in the right place.
They want no happy accidents.
They've had a few this game as they've been out of position from time to time. They do still have that Baron buff, not empowering the minions in this wave, which means it would take them a little bit longer to get there. Looks like Reckless might be going back to sell his boots and buy a new item, but instead, just going to push up the next wave.
Now, he values the boots very highly here in this matchup because of the fact he doesn't want to get hit by spears. He wants the movement speed to avoid. Could be the Phantom Dancer is what you would replace it with, but the boots still, I believe, give you a little bit more here.
Ren caught out, dodge from Caps. Explosive cast was channeled as well as Ren now looking for the chase, but the jump away from Caps. And now we'll see Fnatic going for a fight on the other side. Chain of Corruption lands, there's a Glacial Prism as well, all onto Pallet. So it goes in, Jezz trying to connect. Blue Inhibitors dies in the bottom lane as Caps takes it down, and now he's going to join the fight. So it's a great bomb and stun, and Loose Power kills Reckless, but Caps is just going for the Nexus Towers here. Fnatic have been forced back. Caps looking to see if he can win this game.
Yeah, they got to stop him on these Nexus turrets. They might lose one here with the damage from the creeps. Venus getting pulled in from Pallet, and he snaps back to try to finish it, and Null!
He gets it, can't quite take down Null though, and Ren doesn't land the body slam, but the stun does connect. Caps jumps in with the Zhonya's, but Fnatic have lost their 2 carries now, and Young Generation have held on to this game.
They lost their carries, but there are super minions pouring into the base. They have to kind of do their due diligence here, take these down, push the waves. They might be able to get that middle inhibitor, but there's 30 seconds on Reckless. They will be able to reach it just barely, and that might actually be the difference.
Fnatic just not quite able to break that base. 10 turrets down in favor of them, and Young Generation still holding on. I thought perhaps they had run their tank dry. I thought they were running on fumes. Young Generation proved me wrong once again.
Yeah, Null. He ended up getting a fantastic 4-man scatter of the week. It stunned Reckless. Reckless had to go for a cleanse to get out of it, and then he flashed forward and burst
No
it.
way.
They're going to try to end. They are done with this game.
No way, Zyrene, do they close this out? Chain of Corruption comes in, Fnatic trying to fight it back. Young Generation still alive. Big Koro is down into the GA. Ren's there. They don't have any more damage. Null trying to do what he can. Big Koro survives the McHugh. Scimitar, the knockback onto Proxer. A great locket, though, and Pallet lands the hook. Young Generation realize they can't do it because Caps is respawning. Fnatic aren't going to let them go without a fight, but Null blocks them off once again. Proxer has flash here. He will look for the engage from the side. Minions in the bottom lane pushing in. There's a huge wave down there.
Get back.
One Nexus tower. Can they get back? Can they get to the Nexus?
As soon as they get back, though, they don't have the firepower to kill this off and heal simultaneously. They have to do it fast, and there's 30 seconds on the Elder Dragon.
They will escape. It's up to Ren as well to get away here because Caps is trying to chase him down. He realizes
he's spotted. He's dead.
He's on a ward. Is he dead, though? We've seen Caps misplay today. It's up to Ren to try and dodge around. The chains connect, and Caps jumps in. Goodbye, Ren, says Caps, as eventually he will get the kill on towards this Gragas.
Keeping him alive for as long as possible to delay his death timer. This means that he's stuck and now it's not already ticking. He wanted to die a little earlier than this.
Will eventually go down, though. Caps does secure the kill. Elder Drake up in 2 seconds. Fnatic, though, could just look for the 4v5 in mid. Caps teleporting in towards that bottom lane. One inhibitor is alive still for Young Generation in that top side. One Nexus tower between Fnatic and the win that they so desperately desire in this game.
Yeah, and they have 60 seconds of a 4v5. They don't care about the Elder Dragon right now. They care about pushing up and trying to win this game. We're seeing more item swaps. GA swapped out for Death's Dance for Big Koro.
It's up to him, it's up to Norn, it's up to Venus, who has a death cap of his own. The knockback minion's not quite there. The stun, though, is going to land onto Venus. Big Koro chased off towards the side. There's the charm. Mercurial Scimitar a little bit too early, but it's still Big Koro surviving. So as
Reckless ending the game.
Unleashed Tower. Reckless says, I don't care about your kills. I want a Nexus. The best 50 gold he secured this game.
Reckless ends the game with the team pushing forward, and really the team play there from Fnatic to understand what to do once their enemy had misplayed. The fact that they tried to end the game, Young Generation got too greedy. They pushed up with an Elder Dragon spawning. They could have reset, and Fnatic said, we're gonna run you down mid. We're gonna set up, and they caught Ren.
It may not be the victory screen for Young Generation, but they can take a huge amount of hope from that game as well, pushing Fnatic to 52 minutes in a game where they had a composition that seemed to fall off after the early game. They really did a number on Fnatic, forcing them all around the map, and it's a wake-up call for those EU LCS favorites in this game.
And it makes this group incredibly interesting. It could have been all of them ending the day tied 1-1, but it leaves Young Generation at 0-2, Chaos Latin Gamers with the 1-1, and Fnatic at the top with the 2-0.
But you look at the game between Chaos Latin Gamers and Young Generation earlier on, and you say, if Young Generation play like this, they should take Chaos Latin Gamers, assuming that Chaos Latin Gamers don't find something else in their tank.
Yeah, and the fact that this was a lot of Null, I love the fact that he was one of the reasons that they got back into it. Reckless died one time, it was because Null blew him up in that fight. And really, I feel as though this mid laner, he had the CS 70 up at the end of the game against Chaos Latin Gamers. In this game, he was how they were in the game, and we can see a little bit of how that mid priority is working out for them with the aggressiveness of Venus in the jungle. It just didn't translate, because the comp did fall off. Like, we're looking at, like, I just want to take a little moment for this, because they had the Draven, they had the Thresh, they had the Nidalee. They had a lot of aggressive picks in lane, but those weren't what won them the early parts of the game. It was the Syndra in mid, a very standard pick. If they had picked standard around it, it may look a little bit different when you hit those mid-game, late-game points.
Definitely. 100%. I totally agree with you. I think a lot of people will be surprised by how well Young Generation did in that game. We're going to get the thoughts on that win from Fnatic from the analyst desk. Let's send it over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Medic. Of course, a final display coming in from Fnatic to close that one out. A nail-biter of a game, and it's so close. And I just want to immediately get into this first replay. The fight for Elder Drake felt like such a huge pivotal moment for me. And when we look at it, look, all I'm saying is, yes, Caps got destroyed in the early game. But if Meteos gets credit for 2 Lee Sin kicks in that Flash Wolves game from 2016, Caps definitely gets some credit here.
Caps is by far the worst LeBlanc I have ever heard of.
But at least you've heard of it. So, we want to keep track of what he does in this fight specifically. And the first thing you'll notice is that he helps his team secure the Elder Drake, and then he's going to get this beautiful flank down onto Null. And to Null's credit, he has been playing exceptionally well, but when your flash is down, when your cleanse is down, there is very little that you can do against the LeBlanc that you just don't have vision of. And I'd say that he was able to get the ulti down onto Caps at the very end there, but a clutch Sonya's prevented him from losing his.
And I think the big thing to look at is Young Generation backed kind of unnecessarily far off that Elder Dragon, and once Fnatic realized how far away they were, it was a very easy call to burn the Elder Dragon and then take the fight, whereas before it was all about positioning, and if you get the dragon down low, you might lose the smite, but Venus ended up so far away that wasn't a threat.
And well, ultimately, I feel like Fnatic does deserve a little bit of praise for staying focused. We said, hey, Caps may be frustrated. He did kind of come back and show up when it mattered most. We also have to be a little critical for Young Generation, because ultimately, this felt like this game was in their hands. And I want to know, like, what really went wrong here for this team?
I mean, there were a couple macro calls that you can look at, like the decision to try and end the game. That clearly didn't work out that well. But there's no reason that call alone is why they lost. There were a bunch of mistakes out of Ren where if he played just a little bit better, I feel like that they probably could have been able to win this game.
I mean, what you have to bear in mind, right, is that Young Generations are the second seed coming in from the Vietnamese region. And the fact that they were able to push Fnatic this far back means that they definitely deserve a lot of credit for not only their individual talent, but for how effectively they were able to punish the poor plays demonstrated by Fnatic. But also, you just saw the slight difference in experience and understanding of how to play the game, positioning, setup, that Fnatic were able to consistently punish once you got into those really late game fights.
And what I will say is it felt like if they did have a different top laner, they might have actually been able to fully Fnatic and win the game.
I agree.
And luckily for them, they do have another top laner on their team, Nocti, the guy that they brought in their finals to reverse sweep to get here. And I wouldn't mind seeing him potentially tomorrow because the rest of Young Generations feels like they're stepping up.
And honestly, I don't want to put it all on Ren because, of course, there were mistakes across the board. But you are right that in both of their games, he has felt like sort of a weak point. And in the same way, once again, when we look at their final series that they had to play to get here, they lost 2 games with him, and then they brought in Nocti and everything turned around, and at this point, that is exactly the kind of turnaround they need if they want to lock in a first or second seed.
Yeah, especially given the fact that they're playing Gragas, which is something that's more in the wheelhouse of Nocti, someone who wants to play the Galio, these tankier things, and Ren was the more aggressive one, picking Gnar, J4, Renekton, these kinds of things. So it is a little surprising. I know you can't, put Nocti in once you realize you're taking the Gragas and putting it top, but it is something where it feels like this playstyle looked pretty good, and I wouldn't mind seeing it with a more tank-focused top laner.
But now we get to be even more excited for the matchup between Young Generations and Chaos Lighting Gamers tomorrow for that fateful potential rematch of that second seed, because Young Generations already stepping up in their second game of the day. You can only imagine that they're going to continue to get better, while Chaos Lighting Gamers are going to review and evaluate to see how they can make sure that they stay on top.
And on the same side, Fnatic, of course, starting off with the 2-0 does look good, but when we look at that final game, it doesn't feel quite as powerful as we look at the Cloud9, for example. And we have to wonder, what are Fnatic going to do coming in tomorrow? What are they going to evaluate? Because there's a very real possibility that in a rematch, Young Generation could take it, not just looking at Nox or Ren, but across the board, Fnatic got pretty wrecked in the early laning phase.
I think we have to remember WE on day 1 and how well they got challenged by Lion, and they were able to win out on a very long, drawn-out game. And I think it's one of those situations where these teams from emerging regions are effectively able to challenge some of our top teams in terms of individual skill, but also in team fight capacity. And I think that for a lot of our top pool seeds, they aren't fully respecting that, but after their first losses, they should be able to learn and identify and show a lot more respect to future opposition.
And honestly, it's pretty hard not to respect them after a game like that. Well, we've got one more game before we close out the day. It's Rampage versus 1907 Fenerbahce. And as we prep for that matchup, we're going to send it over to Fish, who has an interview with the Fnatic top laner.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Soaz, top laner for Fnatic, after their victory there over Young Generation. That was such a back-and-forth match. Did you expect going into it that it'd be such a tough battle?
Well, I didn't really quite expect this game, obviously, but obviously we don't underestimate them or any opponents that we face, I mean, in planes or anything. So, yeah, it was a pretty close game.
Well, you guys definitely didn't underestimate them because you were able to pull it back from the deficit and eventually pick up the win. And I kind of want to talk about you coming back to Worlds. Your 5th World Championship, and it must be good to be back here, especially after missing out last year on coming to Worlds.
Yeah, both for Reckless and me, actually, because, I mean, Reckless was in Fnatic and I didn't make it, and I was in Origin, and we had pretty bad split overall. So it's pretty important for, and both us and the team as well to show a good performance for Souls at Worlds. Like, for myself, I would really like to get out of groups of Worlds, and then it's extra. We're also like, we're sort of a new team because we have like 2 rookies, and it's like the first year of like, Jesse's playing support and everything. So it's pretty new team. So I would be happy if we get out of groups, but obviously not trying to think too much about it and just going games by games.
Well, you have a slightly longer journey than usual thanks to being seeded into the plains, but so far so good. You're 2-0 on the day. Is the team confident going into day 2 after the 2-0 victories here?
I think yes, but this game like showed that. I mean, I don't know if there's like, like issues. If it was like the poses issues or this kind of stuff that like set us back, and I felt like we didn't play our game. We are not talking quite as much, and since we are not talking quite as much, they got so much on mid lane. So Yeah, there's definitely some like issues in terms of communication, so we need to like fix that. Even if there's like pauses and long pauses and everything like this, so I guess it's just hard to remain focused, but we just need to eventually fix that.
Well, it's good to see that you guys were still able to push through despite the unfortunate circumstances. Congratulations on your 2-0 today. Best of luck going into tomorrow's matches. We're going to go into a very quick break. We'll be back with the last match today shortly.
So as respecting the fact that Nidalee could burst him down, here's the unleashed power onto Caps. Jumps away to flash it by Null. Caps is clapped in the mid lane by Null. Well, they've still killed Brox, and perhaps they've killed the hopes of EU. Caps jumping in. Here goes Jesus as well. Baron down to 2,000. Ren gets jumped out of the pit. The Baron falls. It's gone to Young Generation, and they've still got members alive. Jesus is so low, but 3 members have died, and it's only Null and Ren who will escape to the backside. But here is the damage from the unleashed power. So it splashes the wall, but you cannot flash away from the biggest Koro on Young Generation.
Now,
The only big Koro as well.
you didn't have to do that. You just could have just left it.
Young Generation perhaps want to re-engage now as Ren goes to the front line. A charm from Jesus, a 5-man charm, the knockup. Big Koro's still alive, and he's going to pound away on Caps. Ren dead, 2 dead, so as
Reckless ending the game.
Unleashed Tower. Reckless says, I don't care about your kills, I want a Nexus. The best 50 gold he secured this game.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for our final game of the day, Rampage, going toe-to-toe with 1907 Fenerbahce. Now, drawing some parallels between the groups, Young Generation, man, they started with a rough game, came out swinging in Game 2. Do we expect a similar performance from Rampage versus Fenerbahce?
It very much depends on how the draft goes. I'm looking at that draft thinking if that's another Soraka, I mean, I don't know how many ships I have left to abandon because I'm jumping out as fast as I possibly can.
Yeah, but your leg's still tied there. I remember pretty early in the day how vehement you were that they were going to be the team coming out number 1.
I think there is the possibility that they could get a surprise upset against 1907.
How quickly the
Fenerbahce.
opinions change. Well, on the other side, I think Fenerbahce came out and surprised us in a very different way. They came up looking incredibly strong, taking down HKA. It was a good look for them overall, but how dominant did we really feel that win was?
It was a little tough to say because it did come off the back of 2 Baron steals, and I think you can give them credit for team fighting better than HKA, and it might be the kind of thing where Rampage's early game last time did not look so good, and so if they move into the mid game even, Fenerbahce is very likely to win, but it is kind of contingent on that fact that, we haven't really seen Rampage with a reasonable draft.
Yeah, all I want to see from Rampage is get out of the laning phase because domestically, they are very slow as a region. They're not about early game junglers. And I think that so far in this group, they've experienced 1 early game jungler and they're very likely going to experience another one in the form of Crash. So as long as they can control him and not put their laners into such a deficit by 1, drafting poorly, and number 2, allowing themselves to get camped extremely hard, then I'm hopeful when it comes to their ability to
Much more conservative language
Team
now.
fighting is what I think they're good at.
All right. So, but the one thing I do want to bring up is that in that Fenerbahce game, it didn't feel like a very fast, very aggressive early laning phase from either side. Now, Crash, of course, has the reputation that he can play that early aggressive style, but I don't think that really came out in the previous game. Do we kind of expect this to be slower in terms of Rampage not really being an aggressive team and Fenerbahce with Move not being an aggressive team and also showing a little bit of that with Crash?
I think that could be the case because even in their own region, they were not super aggressive in the TCL for 1907 Fenerbahce. They did play more through their mid lane, and what happened in that game was there was an early gank by Mission that they were able to get the first kill. That was on to Frozen. They kind of slowed that early game down, as well as the fact that Padden in lane does seem like a small liability. So I don't necessarily think Fenerbahce needs to play that slow every time. It was kind of a byproduct of that game.
Yeah, and speaking of Padden during the laning phase, that's another lane with which I think you could look to try and take advantage of as well, especially given that his individual talent during the early laning phase does seem to be a weakness. And I think that can be swapped around for the side of Frozen, because I do think that individually he is a very strong player that you really have to watch out for on the side of 1907.
The last point that I kind of want to hit for Rampage is that we've seen this shift where Dara has been more present on the bottom side of the map, trying to help out Yutori Moyashi. Maybe that is a good matchup. Maybe that will work out for them. Did not work out with Soraka. But Vedius, what is your impression? Should he be looking to play more roaming, more playmaking champions and leaving Yutori Moyashi on his own? Or do you like the 2v2 lane style that they've been kind of shifting towards recently?
Personally, I think that, excuse me, they looked better when Dara and Tussle were working together as a unit. But that doesn't necessarily mean that playing around your AD carry is the poor thing to do, because I think that right now with a bot-centric meta, Ardent Sensor, we saw how impactful carries have been throughout this day. It's never a wrong decision, especially when you look at Yutori Moyashi, who again, in team fights really can shine. It's just about getting him to that point, and you're not going to if you lock in things like a Soraka against a Zayat Rakan. So just please ban Rakan.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does come down a lot, I think, to the support pool. For Yutori Moyashi, he's played Triss basically forever. All of his last games are on Triss, so he'll probably grab that again. Pretty independent champion that can play aggressive or kind of play more by itself while its support goes and roams around the map.
The other side of this, too, is, of course, I'm wondering, are playmakers in general more valuable, or are we looking for more lane supports? Because we have seen a lot of aggressive roams into the mid lane from supports over the last few days. It's not in every game, of course. It's not 100% prevalence, but I'm wondering, is there a better way to play bot lane right now?
I personally prefer the more tanky, aggressive playmaker support. And give me the Alistairs, give me the Rakans, Braum,
Thresh.
Tom Kench, Thresh, any of these things. Janna, I think, works situationally.
Well, we're going to find out what they opt to include in
He
the
found
support
Rakan!
meta as we go to the casters. Enough from you, Vedius.
Thank you very much, Dracos. I am still joined by the man who wears a suit better than a deck of cards. It's Aiden, Zyrene, Moon. We're into picks and bans already. Talia, Rakan, and Cho'Gath taken away by Rampage on the blue side, and Fenerbahce have removed Jarvan and Kalista from the pool.
I like the bans that have been coming through, except the Rakan. It means if you're going to first pick the Xayah, For Yutori, then that's great. If you aren't, then it's probably Tristana. And I don't really, I don't really have too much beef with that. If you're taking Tristana and you think that's better for your AD carry than Xayah, then you don't want Fenerbahce to go Xayah Rakan as their 1 and 2 spots.
And we did see Padden go off on that Tristana earlier on, went 10-1 in his game, I do believe. It's a Draven hover here for Padden, would be a strong laning matchup into the Tristana, but instead it looks like Fenerbahce are going to lock in their support in the form of a Lulu.
I actually like Lulu as one of those happy mediums where Polymorph is just such an annoying skill, and she's just so good at allowing the lane to be a winning lane for you and get the Ardent Sensor. So I do really like that support pickup here. It depends if they're going for something like a Kog'Maw or if it ends up being more along like a Xayah.
Looks like it's once again going to be Gragas for Crash in the jungle, giving him something that's relatively safe, relatively easy to coordinate with the team. We did see him struggle a couple of times with explosive casts early on in their game against Hong Kong Attitude. Rampage now probably going to go towards their support and their jungler for these next 2 picks.
Yeah, the jungler gets locked in. It's the Rek'Sai here with the Sejuani Jarvan banned away and the Gragas taken early on. So the Rek'Sai, not that great in the late game. We'll see if Tussle has a good effect in the early game, because Crash already played this matchup earlier today, and he was able to get the better of the Rek'Sai.
Eventually, it was a very long, drawn-out process against Godquiet and the Hong Kong Attitude squad.
I feel like when the Rek'Sai doesn't get to do much early game, and then it hits mid game, and she doesn't even have the flash multi-person knock-up anymore. She'll knock up the closest person to her center, and then everybody else gets pushed away. So I just feel like Rek'Sai, post 25 minutes, if it's not full AD and it hasn't been putting in work, it's a pretty bad champion to have on the roster compared to other junglers you could have, like the Gragas.
And it feels like 1907 Fenerbahce are going completely against this idea that Crash is purely an early game jungler, because he's got the Gragas. They're playing a late game bottom lane in the form of Lulu and Kog'Maw as well, something that scales up really well, and not really going for these early priority picks that perhaps we expected them to.
Yeah, the Lulu was interesting. Didn't think that was too much contested. I do like the Gragas, because Gragas is considered the #1 counter to Kog'Maw, where you can put him in a different place and separate his supports from him, and Kog'Maws will usually play a little bit further forward. So I do like those pickups for 1907 Fenerbahce right off the bat. The Galio ban, so they don't have more support here for that Kog'Maw. And Thaldrin had a good Galio game where he was able to separate the map. I feel like if you're banning the Galio, you're probably banning Shen as well.
Would definitely make a lot of sense. You want less protection on that AD carry. Fenerbahce putting a lot of eggs in the Padden basket, whereas Rampage have a more rounded team composition for the time being. Really want to see Evie in that top lane, given something he can split push on, given something he can pressure on, because that is where he thrives as a player.
Yeah, he is very popular in that Camille. 3 games on it in his summer season with a pretty good win rate, 2 and 3. There's the Shen ban, making sure they don't have that protection for the Kog'Maw, which once the Lulu was locked in, you can kind of see coming.
Maokai does give you a lot of protection as well, a lot of zone control with that ultimate. Get the Kiddens out and make them chase down your opposition. Rampage looking towards mid and top for their final 2 picks. I'm going to see any interesting decisions out from them here.
It really depends. You can go for something more aggressive like the Gnar and try to win that lane in the top side, especially with all these tanks banned away. I feel like that's what they're looking for here. And when you have that Corki, Fenerbahce can go for Syndra, LeBlanc. There's a lot that's left up here. If they wanted to really hard counter it too, you go Kassadin, but then your wave clear is awful. We'll see what Rampage pick in the top lane, because it's been so far the most important one.
Looks like it might be the Gnar that you predicted. Gives Evie a lane that he can win as well, which is so vital for Rampage. A lot of their wins do come off the fact that Evie is strong in those 1v1 matchups on the top side of the Rift.
Yeah, now I want to see wave clear from 1907 Fenerbahce. The Syndra is what I would think would come through. Beats the Corki early, loses a little bit later when Trinity Force Hexdrinker are in. And there we go.
You're on form, Zyrene. Great predictions throughout the end of that draft. Any predictions for me on how these compositions are going to match up against each other?
Fenerbahce have a winning mid early, losing top, losing bot. Except for the Lulu, will be able to actually provide pressure. So this is one that flips later, but I do feel like the Kog'Maw and the Lulu should be able to push in the Tristana and the Alistar. But Rampage have the more aggressive jungler, so watch for what Tussle does early. against Crash, and then Rampage just have superior split push come late game.
Tussle hasn't always been an early game jungler as well. Very low proximity early on with his team, not great at utilizing these early junglers, but is good at being involved in kills when they do happen for the Rampage lineup. Rampage, of course, coming off a loss earlier on. Really want to step up their game. They were almost perfect game by Hong Kong Attitude. Only a fountain dive at the end, actually giving a kill across towards the Rampage lineup. And they haven't really tasted defeat at all this season. They only lost to Detonation's Focus Me in the LJL.
That's true. It's always been the LJL back and forth at the top. Detonation, Focus Me, Rampage. Every single finals keeps coming down to those two teams, the ones that have imported, that have worked on their rosters. But remember, for Rampage, they were the representatives for the LJL for Japan at MSI. They fell short, and they already started off on the wrong foot here at the 2017 World Championship. They need to pick themselves up, take down Fenerbahce, and then you have Group D with 1-1 for every team coming into day 2.
Three-way tiebreakers. I love a good score. I am from EU after all. 1-on-1 scores are exactly my cup of tea. Seeped for about 5 minutes or so if you want to get that perfect brew on. And what Rampage are looking to do is come back from that almost perfect game earlier on. We have seen teams come back from poor performances in game 1. Young Generation, a prime example of it. Rampage will be trying to match their opponents from across the pond.
Yeah, I feel like the Vedius curse might have gotten to them. No.
It's awful. It is dire.
Fnatic suffered. Rampage has suffered. Who is next?
There's something about that man that screams Welsh Wizard to me. You know, he's thin, he probably lives off moss.
He has that
makes all of these predictions. He's got dragon fire in his eyes.
God, he's
Daenerys Targaryen, eat your heart out.
I was about to say, he's like Caius Ligarius from Julius Caesar. He's got that lean, hungry look to him.
True, you are true. Rampage have a very hungry look to them, as well as they are hungry for their first victory in Wuhan and of Worlds 2017. 1907 Fenerbahce trying to secure their spot at the top of that group. A surprise to some, an expectation for many others. Lots of analysts were coming into this tournament saying Fenerbahce are the wildcard team to watch.
Yes, especially from being from the Turkish region up against a team like Supermassive, and then having somebody like Thaldrin that people are very familiar with, and then bringing in imports like Frozen and Move. Overall, Fenerbahce were in a region that historically has a good reputation in international tournaments, getting in through the play-in parts, but now in the emerging regions, they seem to be one of those ones that are near the top. But remember, it was the 3rd seed from the LMS, the Hong Kong Attitude, and it wasn't something that was a completely convincing game. I think the biggest takeaways from that are that Fenerbahce ward pretty well, and we'd still like to see more, but they ward pretty well, and that they also know what to do with their compositions and what to do against the enemies. So I want to see them handle the split push, and I want to see what they do with this Kog'Maw and the Lulu come late game.
Something they do extremely well as well is when they have a gold lead, they hold on to it. They never give up. You're very unlikely to come back from behind against Fenerbahce.
Well, remember, they were up against Hong Kong Attitude, and Hong Kong Attitude was in the lead about 1,000, 2,000 gold the whole time, and then at the very end, when Fenerbahce got a slight gold lead, they ran away with it and won the game.
They did. Incredibly good at snowballing, and incredibly good at relying on their top laner as well. Thaldrin, a stalwart for this team, a veteran, and their captain as well. Has been around the block a few times in international competition. Let's see how he is able to match up into Evie, especially since you've got a jungler who... Crash is a very reliable jungler and a very good jungler, but you wonder how much synergy he's had time to develop with this Fenerbahce lineup, because when you're in a losing matchup in the bottom lane and in the top lane, your jungler really needs to be there to help relieve the pressure, help push out the lane. We'll have to see how Crash is able to do that in this early game.
He's actually done the exact same route that he did in the first game, where he went through his jungle, went to the enemy jungle, was like, they didn't do Gromp, and then wards it up, and then looks towards that top side.
Ward is placed at the right timing by Evie. So Rampage, aware of Crash's jungle pathing, he's going to go to Krugs now, get himself a juicy 10 CS, as much as rock people can be juicy, of course. It's like getting blood from a stone. Taking Krugs takes you an age on those junglers. Where's your main point of focus in this early games, Irene? As an analyst, as someone who likes to break down the game, where are you looking and saying, this is what I want to see, this is what I'm interested in?
I'm always watching junglers. As a jungler myself, I'm always watching junglers, especially the one that has the more aggressive champion, like Tussle. It's really just on this guy, what can he do? Is he able to walk around wards and be informed by his team? Because right now, Crash backs, gets himself Hunter's Potion, and also gets himself the upgrade for the trackers, and that's really just what he has to do. If you can protect this Kog'Maw Lulu and also keep your top lane safe, then I feel like you've done your job as the jungler that's in the less aggressive matchup.
And as I was doing research on Tussle before, I actually found it very interesting to look at his early jungle stats and how he prioritizes his jungling and his laning, because actually he doesn't tend to spend that much time around his team. 34.2% of the early game is spent in proximity with his teammates. It's a very low number, and he doesn't get that many kills early on as well.
Yeah.
Kills and assists at 15 minutes is 1.31. That's the lowest of any play-in jungler. However, this time he's adapted. Frozen knocks him back, Crash around the corner. Tussle is going to get knocked up with the body slam and has to flash away to keep himself safe.
I don't feel like he had to flash there with Frozen having no mana, but he just does it to be completely safe, and that's actually way more pressure for Crash, who can keep going in and invading and placing wards now without much fear.
And once again, it's Crash coming mid. It's what we saw in game 1. 2 early ganks mid before that 6-minute mark. Here, 1 relatively early one, and again, just coming back round, is against the Corki as well. Wasn't able to be too effective in game 1, but did give Frozen a little bit of a CS advantage here.
Remember, it is a Corki now. Instead of with the cleanse, it's with the teleport. And Patton walks up. He's going to get jumped on. This will be a reset on the rocket jump too, I believe.
That's the reset.
It is.
He's going to jump in again. Patton tries to jump away, gets the help pick shield. And that's Summoner's Burnt for Fenerbahce in the bottom lane.
And that was Patton going too far. That's 3 summoner spells, a chunked out health bar for a single summoner spell on the side of Rampage. That is a huge win for the Tristana Alistar after going all in.
Patton going too far forward? I'm pretty sure I've heard of that story before.
Oh man, I like to get that one out of my head real quick and just reset, but he is a large part of this late game here with the Kog'Maw. They just need to keep him afloat. And that's probably where Crash is going to have to be pulled to, because this Summoner Spell advantage, you could flash, pulverize, and then headbutt this Kog'Maw into your team. You have to kind of hover around this area.
And those summoners are going to be down for so long. I mean, Ramune can get the package. You can see Tussle come down here, 4-man dive on a Kog'Maw and a Lulu before they hit level 6 is very effective. Crash has caught out Tussle, though. He's going to try and jump away. And once again, Crash not quite in the exact right spot with that explosive cast.
Yeah, that actually probably would have been a kill because the Cinder was coming down from the mid lane, and there's no flash on the Rek'Sai from before, members, and that's why Crash feels confident to walk into the jungle and ward this up.
Even game in terms of gold, but we're seeing advantages for both teams in different areas. Bot lane seems to go in favor of Rampage, Yuturu, Mayasi, and Dara doing a great job down there. Mid lane is in favor of Frozen and the jungle as well for Crash. So Fenerbahce playing around that mid-jungle synergy, the 2 Koreans on their team.
Thaldrun just ultied towards Ramune. This is a Trident attack. They're coming from 3 different angles. That's a long route.
The route lands. Here comes Frozen as well. The flash away, but the route is going to hit once again, and that's just first blood for Fenerbahce in the mid lane.
Yeah, that is a fantastic Trident attack with Thaldrun, Frozen, and Crash all showing up to kind of give Frozen a large advantage here because the TP was already used by Ramune.
Evi's used TP now as well, so that's another teleport that is going to be down. Thaldrun will have his up sooner than Evi, so that gives them more advantage later on, and they can look for more of these plays. Fenerbahce typically playing around Frozen once again.
Yeah, and remember, the Maokai ultimate was changed for the longer it travels, the higher the duration is, up to 2.4 seconds of a route. And so it went a very long distance and was able to just keep him in place. He blows his flash afterwards, but still, the W from Thaldrun had already connected as he has caught up.
And one of the key points we've been making so often throughout these play-ins is your veterans have to stand up when you're in play-ins. Thaldrun comes down, probably calls for the gank, says, I'm coming mid, let's kill this guy at level 6.
And that's something that we didn't see from him earlier, because remember, he was in a matchup, Galio versus Maokai, where he got pushed under his turret. His turret was half HP. It's like, why isn't this Galio shoving out the Maokai, or at least clearing and kind of handshaking on waves, and then going to look for like an ulti mid or something, or some type of engage, or trying to blow flashes in other lanes. So Thaldrun much more active this game on this Maokai.
20 CS advantage though for Rampage in that bottom lane. Yuturi, Mayashi, and Dara doing a great job down here as they continue to force back Padden. Not quite got his flash up. It's about a third of the cooldown remaining on that, but there is an exhaust for Japón, so if they do get aggressed upon, they should be able to keep themselves safe, especially with that level 6 wild growth from the Lulu.
Since this bottom lane doesn't win for Fenerbahce, and it wins with the aggression now because the Summoner spells being down for Padden, getting control of this Infernal Drake for 1907 really relies on Frozen in the mid lane, and that's kind of where you want to play as the junglers. More towards that mid lane here, since your mid laner's winning, since he has a CS advantage, you've got the jungler's other flash early on. You can start going for things like this, where you can start setting up roams and trying to get something like that Infernal Drake and freeing up your bottom side.
You're saying that Crash should gank mid lane on 1907 Fenerbahce?
I'm saying he probably shouldn't go bottom, and instead he should go mid, because then him and Frozen can team up and free up bottom, because I don't think this bottom lane is in a fantastic position right now. And Thaldrun, again, ulti's back up.
I've seen this story before, but Crash is not in the right position to be able to capitalize on it if they do go any deeper. Frozen not with his blue buff. Ramune has his own. And now this is what you want to see a bit more from Evie as well. If Thaldrun's going to continually roam away, you need to aggress on him as he comes back. You need to chunk him down.
Yeah, still just getting denied some minions is mostly what happens here. Thaldrun not to get back. And now Crash is going to help them get it back. So in this matchup, this is just the jungler running through the lane and just being like, all right, I let you get it back, timer. Because otherwise, it would have been favorable for Rampage, because they have so much gold to spend. This is the only lane that hasn't been able to back and spend their gold yet.
Look at that, 3,000 gold on Yutori Mayashi, 2,500 on Padden. That's a pretty impressive amount of gold to be able to spend on your first back. Zerka's pickaxe and double dagger, just to add as much attack speed as possible. It's almost an ardent sensor for Japón, not quite able to get the combination cost of that item.
Yep, nothing just yet, whereas Yutori Moyashi, we'll see what happens here with his back.
Is there an argument just to rush and like an IE here?
I don't think he has enough gold. He'll be able to get like the boots and like the pickaxe and the BF sword. And I guess that's just it. Doesn't have too much more on top of that. So he could have had the... Actually, he may have been able to afford it.
I can't do maths that quickly at this time of night. Evie's going to jump away from Thaldrun up towards this topside. Thaldrun chucks a little bit of Fenerbahce spirit out there as Evie answers with some Rampage of his own. Infernal Drake does go to Fenerbahce, though, as they got control of the bottom lane due to the back timer of Yutori Moyashi. And now 1907 do have that early lead. Infernal Drake, a kill, about 300 gold ahead.
Yeah, and I was just looking at it. Yeah, he was like 10 gold away from being able to full buy an Infinity Edge, but wanted the boots too instead. That's totally fine. It's just a preference there because he doesn't want to get chased down. Because if you don't have boots, and then you're up against a Kog'Maw that has boots and a Lulu, if you misstep, you could probably just get run down by these guys. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want this lane to kind of rubber band back on you. And so he doesn't go for the Infinity Edge, which would have left him with no boots, not even the first one.
Haven't really seen Tussle utilize this Rek'Sai early on. It has been positioning towards mid at times, and we're actually seeing Dara get a flank off onto Crash. Tussle's on his way as well. We'll look for the engage. There's a knock-up, double knock, back towards Crash, but Crash just
Tussle ulti!
away. Tussle ulti's underneath the turret. The explosive cast, the kill as well with the unleashed power. Fenerbahce get their second kill on the board.
Got pulled in by Crash there, who blew the flash and pulled him all the way under as a full HP Tussle, but then he just gets body slammed. Believe he ended up having the interrupt there on his tunnels. It looked like he was trying to get away.
It's great play by Crash and good combination with Frozen as well, who was there to pick up the kill, has the Sorcerer's Boots and is looking towards that Morello Nomicon. Let's have another look at this, because I believe the tunnel comes underneath.
Yeah, it was early on that he used the tunnel. And then when he comes out, it's just the body slam after. So that's what it was. It was the body slam with the, the explosive cask, and then it was the Scatter the Weak, which made it look like he went back and then forward.
Like a ping pong ball in the mid lane.
But like I said with the Rek'Sai, it is a champion that you gotta have some type of tempo. If you start losing that, it's like, all right, this champion does not feel good to be playing right now, especially into things like the Gragas and trying to reach this Syndra. It's gonna be really difficult since he wasn't able to exploit the early part of the game.
Evie trading onto Thaldrun in the mid lane. When you go into the Mega Gnar, you get ability to trade relatively effectively, but Thaldrun will just continue to harass back. Sap Magic passive, of course, on the Maokai gives you a lot of health back in this matchup as well. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, we still see that turret being pressured. There could be first tower blood down towards this bottom side. We said top and bot lanes are going to lose for Fenerbahce. Rampage will be able to get the advantage. And meanwhile, in the mid lane, that's where we've seen 1907 Fenerbahce put their pressure.
Yeah, but there's also a package now for Ramune, so he's looking to roam, looking to maybe get this bottom turret. And you have to have people show up and be in attendance here. This Crash will hang around this area, and you can see Ramune cares more about his positioning here and the killing out those wards.
To just use the package to get back into the lane to clear it out. I was expecting a roll call in the bottom lane. School was in session. Had to mark off the attendance, but Ramune decided he wanted to bunk off school today, taking a little bit of a break, maybe going camping with your father.
Nope.
No, the Nar knocks back. It's just like, nope, not gonna happen today.
I don't know if this is set up for another joke.
Nope. Just referencing back. You've got to allude sometimes.
Please stop.
And elude Evie as Tholdren is kept in the lane. Evie's almost up towards that back cleaver.
Bottom side, 2 people roaming down. This could be a tower dive. You do have the Gragas with the body slam and the ultimate.
Immediately, Yutoi, Mayashi, and Dara back away, but we're starting to see that pressure from Padden that does happen on the Cogmore. You pop that Bio-Arcane Barrage, and you can put a lot of damage down very quickly, especially with the Lulu buffing you up.
Yeah. He just walks forward with that extra movement speed. And then it really would become Dara. In order to stop that, he'd have to go in, headbutt, pulverize. And then at that point, you're putting yourself more at risk for that gank. So you just book it out of there, back, lose some CS to the turret. And Tholdren.
Gonna stat magic, try and get some health back. Pops down the Nature's Grasp as well, but it's a good dive from Rampage. As Tussle gets his first assist on the board, and Rampage get their first kill of the game.
And Crash is just looking to get to that turret so it doesn't drop. But there's enough of a forcing unit here. May have to pull Frozen up to the top side too. But Dara is just holding mid.
If you're a support in that situation, you are so happy. Because you know you're going to get all of those CS. Oh no, you're not, because they got into tower. Oh, you saw 200 gold just disappear before your eyes.
Does that make
very sad cow. He's morose now.
Oh my god. You're worse than Freak. That's not a compliment, by the way.
Well, yeah, worse usually isn't. Just the excitement of worlds. It's getting to me, Zoe.
I gotcha.
1,000 gold lead for Fenerbahce as they continue to get this mid lane pressure. And they've got Ardent Sensor on the Lulu now as well, so Padden is going to be in a strong position. Only 20 CS down at the 70-minute mark after losing out that lane pretty early on.
And now they're going to swap it. Because this turret on top side is really low and also the one on bottom, you got to find something that may crack a turret faster, and you may be able to get an advantage. No, actually, they're just going to swap it again, so it looked like some hesitation there. Maybe they thought that because Evie was pushing, I don't know. Because they saw Tristana and Alistar killing those Krugs with the ward that was placed earlier. So I guess they just answer here, and it might have been a call from Crash that, hey, I'll help you guys out, because he's on this side of the map.
Down towards that bottom side is spotted out by a ward, but he will clear that. Rift Herald has been started by Tussle and Evie. As a Dragon up, it's only a Cloud. Infernal, of course, picked up earlier by Fenerbahce. 300 gold between the two teams, very even early on. The scaling advantage seems to be in favor of Fenerbahce with the Cogmore and the Lulu combo.
Yeah, you always have to worry a little bit, though, about what happens with this Gnar in terms of split push and pressure. And then the Tristana, can you reach him? Because there may be a point where you really have to rely on Padden for a lot of that damage. But the front line, like you were saying, it's pretty good for Fenerbahce. I would definitely say it's easier to execute in the late game for Fenerbahce.
And sometimes that's what these games come down to. It's which team can pull off their composition easier. Like, is it just a composition where you run at the enemy? Yes, that can work.
Yep. Now we're looking for a turret race. Tussle on top with Evie. They've already dove this guy once. They're trying to get that turret. And meanwhile, bottom, they're just trying to get that damage on it as well.
The Tholdren flashed away there. Turret will go down in the top side first, so Rampage get a little bit extra gold out of that. Still slightly behind, just CS advantages being picked up for Fenerbahce. Just some extra gold from somewhere.
Yeah, more tempo, though, with more members here on the bottom side. And now they have Syndra coming down, too. This will be a 4-on-2.
There's so much damage coming out from Padden. 2.2 attack speed at
Frozen.
18 minutes. Frozen's going to get onto Yutoi Mayashi, but doesn't have the damage.
Stun.
The knockback, the heal. He does get the kill. That's the reason he is the person to watch in this team. Frozen comes up big, gets them a tower in the bottom lane, and they're going to keep pushing.
They're going to keep going, exactly. They're going to look for this turret, potentially an inhibitor on top of it, because Rek'Sai's in mid, not gonna be able to push that turret. He's thinking about it, he wasn't back in there. He's throwing down Rift Herald, that's what it is he's trying to get that turret back. And nope, they're gonna back off after that, because they need to go answer.
I'm having flashbacks to the last game. 20 minutes, almost an inhibitor falling. Join us in 32 minutes as this game will conclude. Tussle is able to get the mid lane tower. Rampage trying to get something back, and that's what you see good teams do. If they know they're losing out on one side of the map, they try and get any advantage they can on the other. But Fenerbahce with a great push in bot secure themselves 3 turrets.
Once again came down to mid lane priority. Frozen had mid lane priority, came down to the bottom side, and then he was able to make that play happen and get those 2 kills. Whereas Thaldrin here,
No
pushed it
flat
mid.
for him. Tussle's on the chase, but he does manage to
heal.
give away the sap magic, but there's the Gnar into the wall. Evie gets a kill for himself. It's 2 for Rampage overall, but Evie is just getting absolutely shredded by Padden. The engage from Krass. Rampage have to flash away. And Fenerbahce are in the driver's seat in this game.
And now they have a little bit more pressure on this mid lane. Padden has been able to pick up a good amount of CS. He's only 10 down now. And with people are backing here, this might be another turret for Fenerbahce.
4 towers at the 20-minute mark. This is much quicker from them. Liking the acceleration they have. We said it earlier on, when they get ahead, they don't let go. And that's exactly what we're 1907 Fenerbahce.
Yeah, they just play around mid a little bit better there with Frozen and the early ganks that went his way. And the fact they were able to shut down Ramune allows him to play towards the bottom side and get this dive. You can see here, Crash, really aggressive. That was a great ulti there from Japone to knock up Dara as he was headbutting in. And then Frozen, really since the rocket jump was down, just gets a disgusting combo.
Really well played by Frozen as well. That's the reason that he was a mid laner for Longzhu. It's the reason that they wanted to set up a team around him. Thaldrin does get caught out a little bit here, perhaps just pushed up a bit too far.
But he lives long enough to pull them in, and then that's what ends up allowing Padden to get this kill back onto Evie, because Evie blows the flash forward after leaping previously, and now you get just run down.
Padden with the Ginsu's now has a Runans on top of it. 21 minutes in, you've got an Ardent Sensor, Runans, Ginsu's Kog'Maw.
Yeah.
That is pretty darn disgusting to face up against.
Yeah, and we're talking about things that are disgusting to face up against. Frozen has gone from Morel Nomicon, Sork Shoes, Void Staff. This is typically like a third purchase. You'll usually see like a Leandri's or something, but he's just saying, I want to be able to obliterate people. There's a little bit of MR that's been purchased with the boots and the Hex Drinker. We're just going to try to get in there and guys up. So look at Frozen to try and snowball now that he's acquired this lead.
Crash getting forced back by Tussle. Padden gets a little bit of chunk down onto the tower, but not going to be able to finish it yet. Yutori Moyashi on the other side does have an Infinity Edge. His Frozen. Tussle goes down to half. Dava, another great wild growth. Japone is showing us exactly how to beat an Alistair on this Lulu. They do lose 1 though, and now we're going to see Rampage continue the chase. Voidooz comes out, slows them up. And Rampage will not be able to get anything more out of this.
Well, Rampage, no, there's no teleport on the Maokai from before, and this is a 3v5 for a bit until he runs up here. Starting up the Baron, that's questionable. But wait, Frozen took a blast cone.
Frozen got caught out. Ramune gets the kill, and now Rampage are right back in this game. 1,000 gold between the 2 teams, and this is where you start up the Baron. Padden and Japone still alive. Exhaust up on the support. Heal, flash on the Kog'Maw as well.
And Evie's about to transform. This is exactly where you want to be with the Mega Gnar. I feel like if you can see this, whoa, he smited for HP. They're not actually doing it. They just want to fight.
Can't quite get the wallop. Here's the Nature's Grasp as well from Thaldrin.
The root!
Padden with a huge amount of deep, but there's the knockout. Padden still going through. It's a double, it's a triple. He's going to get the quadra as well as the Alistair falls. He's having beef for dinner tonight.
They're going to give him the penta!
Is there, trying to jump across the wall. Thaldrin with the chase. Padden can't quite get it. The knockdown onto Ramune. There's the root. There's the penta. Kog'Maw for Fenerbahce.
If you're going to remember anything about Padden, erase the brain. Put this in there. That pentakill, 3v5 in the Baron Pit. Thaldrin with the glorious Nature's Grasp. That is what you want to see from a team captain.
Superb play by Fenerbahce. Japone as well, so instrumental on that Lulu pick. And this is why people tout them as the best in Group D. This is why they're looking to go 2-0 today.
And they just have such a lead now after that. That was Frozen dropping the ball, getting caught after the blast cone, and even before that, the catch on Crash. So this was able to remedy all of that and put it back in Fenerbahce's favor when there were some misplays there, but this was disgusting. This was Frozen. Yeah, the blast cone, that's That's a mistake. They're able to pick him up. Crash is already dead. 3v5, you start this up, but Thaldrin had already started walking up. His teleport, I believe, was not up at this point. It does appear at the bottom, but I don't believe it was. So he walks up, but his placement here of the ultimate, and the fact he keeps his distance, he casts it now, and it starts going. And then everybody says, all right, time to go up. But the range on it, as they turn the corner, as they're almost there at padded, he's kiting back perfectly. And when the headbutt pulverize from Dara comes in, the slam from Thaldrin stops it. And that ends up being a fantastic pentakill here from Padden. They give him Padden the stats.
They japoned the enemy team there. They took that penta at the end. And personally, I doubted Padden and Japone. They're now pushing for this inhibitor in the mid lane. Look at the damage in that last fight. 6,500 on a Kog'Maw. That is dirty, dirty stuff from Fenerbahce as they look to close out this game. A 9,000 gold lead, 25 minutes in. This is more dominant than we saw Fnatic. This is more dominant than we saw Team WE. This is Fenerbahce.
Something that we missed during the replay is Frozen was able to destroy Evie, and that's what allowed them to push up that mid lane without much contest.
Just incredible stuff all around. Rampage wondering where their lead went, wondering where their early game went, wondering where their Tristana went. She's facing up against a 7-0-0 Kog'Maw.
Yeah, a full item up, by the way. Now he has the most gold in the game, and he has 3,000 gold more than anybody on the side of Rampage.
I love this build as well. I really like getting the Frozen Mallet when you're this far ahead because you get that extra tankiness. If someone gets onto you, you just shred through them and they're not going to kill you quickly.
Yeah, exactly. How do you lose this game? Padden dies. How do you stop that? Frozen Mallet. So I like it here. Some people go for the wit's end, but he just wanted this to kite back. And now it's going to be even harder to shut him down, and that's how you make that snowball happen even further. He's caught. Let's see what happens.
There's the wild growth, but Evie gets shredded down. That's a legendary Kog'Maw, and now Padden's just opening up the big guns. He's going to get onto Tussle as well. It's a double, looking for his second penta of the game.
Oh my God.
But Ramune and Yutori Mayashi are not going to give it up.
Get in the fountain. Get in the fountain, boys.
Rampage once again on the end of a devastating loss. They lost earlier on, and now it looks like Fenerbahce are going to take them down. Only 26 minutes in, the Nexus towers are falling.
You can see they're just trying to take care of business here. Make it fast, Padden. Walk it forward, but that's going to be the next. That is so quick.
What an impressive performance from Fenerbahce, and what an impressive performance from their bottom lane as well. Padden trying to get on towards the founding, but that is the Nexus, and that's Fenerbahce going 2-0 up.
And ending the first day at 2-0 at the top of Group D. This group was up in the air. We had some people saying Rampage, some people saying HKA, and others, whispers, 1907 Fenerbahce are now shouts.
They'll be screaming their name right now. Incredible performance by them. Of course, commiserations to Rampage, who are looking like they're going to be the third seed in their group. They're going to get placed last. They obviously still have 2 games to try and fight back, and if they do manage that, they can definitely challenge. Just haven't seen enough out of them to put them up with Fenerbahce and with Hong Kong attitude.
And this is what you wanted to see from Fenerbahce, because their match against HKA, you could see the vision control, you could see how they were playing around mid, but there were still those issues of, okay, we don't see them being convincing versus HKA. It looked like a compositional difference where HKA didn't have enough engage, and then you see for Fenerbahce now, fast game, 26, almost 27 minutes, and that was a decimation. It's different type than the one that you saw from the almost perfect game of HKA versus Rampage, but this one was methodical once they got the lead. There were some hiccups, but really, everybody, when somebody dropped the ball, somebody else was there to pick it right up.
And it's the adaptation that I really like as well. We said we wanted to see more from Thaldrin. He ganked mid really early on.
Yes.
We wanted to see more from Crash as well. He was able to set up his bottom lane. And then you get Padden, who really comes from nowhere and gets 10 kills by the end of the game.
Yeah, he's 10-0-0 at the end of the game. In his previous game, he was like 7-1-7.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is putting up incredible score lines. His laning phase is the one thing that people have been criticizing, and they've been circumventing a little bit. But I do think that one of the things to look at is Crash coming to the bottom side, giving them better back timers, right? You're seeing this jungler understand what the team needs so that they don't get absolutely destroyed, so that you don't end up having this bottom lane be something that's an issue. And I really think that that is that kind of transcends whatever champion they're on. It's a play style thing, and if they're able to keep this bottom lane afloat and he gives performances like that in the late game, that becomes reliable.
Yeah, Fenerbahce looking very strong to break down that game. Let's close out the day with the analysts. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Matt. Of course, just want to start off by taking a look at the composition that has been assembled. This Vedius bows his head in remorse. Of course, a very rough day coming in for Rampage. Got to say, though, Fenerbahce looking stronger and stronger the more we see from them.
Yep, and Rampage, I like what they did with their draft this time around. Just picked pretty standard overall, a lot of comfort stuff for them. And they were hanging in the game for a little bit. You saw that Yutori Marashi was able to build a very big CS lead over Padden, which seems to be kind of the story where he loses lane, but then once he's out of lane, looks like a totally different player.
Yep, I'm really impressed with how Padden plays these team fights, especially one of those fights towards the very end. The fact they were 3v5 and they were still able to win it, just really demonstrating the teamwork that they have. But for the side of Rampage, like it's just kind of disappointment because they seem to have a lot of really strong compositions that they have a lot of options to play with, especially down the bottom lane. I was expecting them to try and set up roam plays, like there were loads of opportunities for them to gank, maybe get early towers. They have a Nara up in the top lane, like they had TP advantage multiple times, and they never take advantage of any of these windows, and they just play the early games so passively that it gives the freedom for team like 1907 Fenerbahce to be like, oh, so we can just do whatever we want. Perfect.
Yeah, great example being that Maokai roam, early into the game where they just send 3 resources to Frozen. We're saying like this is kind of the play style you should expect out of 1907 Fenerbahce, and they didn't feel like they were really trying to stop it. The teleport came in super late from Evi, and they basically just watched their mid laner die and slowly give up advantages.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that Syndra felt like such a huge catalyst in the early game. Everyone was playing around the Syndra, but as we moved later and later, the Kog'Maw felt like it just increased in value, and honestly, Padden just went unnoticed for so long until we come to the mid game, until we come to that Baron, and we see what happens when you put a Kog'Maw in a 3v5 and his team is there to protect him. So we pull up this replay of that pentakill at Baron.
Padden in lane, lull. But you get him out of lane, he suddenly is a totally different player like we were saying. Good pickoffs by RPG to really set this one up, but then when they try and get on the Padden, they're not actually able to get any kind of chain CC and lock him down from putting out all this DPS.
Yeah, I was just really impressed with the way that everything kind of came together. The Maokai ultimate just being good at arriving at the right time to prevent the rest of Rampage to getting on top of the AD carry. Then he repositions in a great way, allowing Lulu to provide all this additional support. And they just kind of funneled one by one into the mouth of this Kog'Maw, who turned himself up a pentakill.
A good synergy as well, making sure they actually picked up that pentakill. A lot of effort there by the Maokai and the Lulu, locking down the Corki, making sure you get that now kind of obsolete stacking bonus because we've already hit the cap.
And I think Thaldrun kind of has been one of the unsung heroes here. He has been incredibly active in roaming around the map. He's had great team fights. The Maokai ult was especially good protecting the Kog'Maw. And I feel like it's hard to look really solid on Maokai, but he definitely did make a great case this game.
I think that's the big thing is he's not a standout player in the sense where you're like, oh man, Frozen just killed 2 people in the bot lane. That's sick. And like Padden's popping off in these team fights on these late game carries that his team brings them to. Thaldrun is kind of the glue that helps bring all of it together. Now that Move is out and Crash is doing a decent job subbing in, but Thaldrun's the one who goes mid early on. He's very good about moving around the map and setting his team up.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think this is Fenerbahce very much making a case for themselves to be the #1 seed. Of course, nothing is locked yet. They're going to have to win a few more games tomorrow if they really want to come in as that #1 seed. But to be an emerging region, to have such a dominant day, even with an emergency substitute coming in for the roster, I think we just have to keep praising Fenerbahce for this fantastic performance.
Yep, I think they're doing extremely well right now. They seem to be a very well-rounded team. My only criticism could be like maybe seeing a little bit more early game action, but when you don't necessarily have that synergy with your jungler, like you can forgive them, right? But aside from that, like their team fighting looks very good, their ability to use leads looks very good, and when they're put behind early on, they found effective ways to come back into it.
All right, well, for the winner's perspective, let's send it over to Fish, who has an interview with the 1907 Fenerbahce mid laner.
Hey guys, I'm here with Frozen after their quick victory over Rampage in their second game of today. Most of the analysts that I've talked to, most of the analysts I've spoken to have said that, either HKA or Rampage were favorites coming into this group. Now you guys are 2-0 on the day. What did you expect coming into the first day of play in group stage?
네, 지금 오늘 굉장히 빠르게 경기를 지금 끝내고 오셨는데요. 대부분의 중계진 쪽 분석에서는 이제 HKA나 아니면 램페이지가 아무래도 우승이 유력할 것으로 예측을 했습니다. 하지만 오늘 벌써 2-0으로 전승을 거두셨는데 이렇게 예측을 하고 오셨습니까?
네, 저희는 사실상 2-0까지는 예측 못했는데 저희가 그냥 저희 플레이하면서 그냥 이길 수 있다라는 생각 가지고 하니까 이기게 된 것 같아요.
Okay, no, not really. We didn't really expect to win 2-0 today, but we just did our play and we believed that we could win, and that's what led us to the victory.
Well, that's great to hear. On top of that, that game was much different from the first one against HKA. Much faster, much cleaner. You guys got a pentakill to a lot more team fights. Tell me a bit more about the game plan coming into game number 2 against Rampage.
네, 그러면 처음에 홍콩 애티튜드와는 정말 다른 경기를 방금 전에 선보이셨는데요. 지금 굉장히 더 빠르고 정확했고 펜타킬도 나왔고 또 한타도 많이 나왔습니다. 어떤 계획을 가지고 게임에 임하셨는지요?
일단 사실상 저희 이제 플레이 스타일이 있는데 사실 저희가 연습을 이틀밖에 못했어요. 이틀밖에 못하고 왔는데 저희가 이제 첫 번째 경기 하면서 저희가 이제 팀워크가 점점 맞기 시작하더라고요. 왜냐면 저희가 정글러를 바꿨거든요. 대회 이틀 전에. 그래서 좀 그냥 가면서 그냥 서로 맞아간 것 같아요. 그래서 조합도 사실 저희가 저희 리그 TBF 결승 준비할 때 준비해뒀던 전략들이 많은데 그걸 지금 하나씩 쓰고 있는 것 같아요.
Well, actually, we have our play style, but we had to change our jungler just 2 days before the game. So we had only a couple of days to practice and create this new teamwork. So on the first game, we came up with some strategies and ways to better our teamwork. And actually, we had some strategies set up prior to coming to Worlds regarding our team composition. And we're actually actualizing that one by one.
Well, it's good to see because even though he was, coming in last minute to Worlds, he was already able to get a smite steal in game 1, performed very well. Now, I just want to know, coming into day 2, you guys are 2-0. How are you guys going to plan to go up against your rematch against HKA as well as Rampage?
네, 그렇다면 지금 교체된 지 이틀밖에 되지 않았는데도 처음부터 이렇게 강타를 스틸하는 등 정말 굉장히 좋은 경기력을 보여주고 있습니다. 그렇다면 이제 내일도 홍콩 애티튜드와 램페이지를 맞서서 경기를 하게 될 텐데 내일은 어떻게 예상하고 계십니까?
사실 아까 얘기해 드렸듯이 이제 게임을 하면 할수록 저희가 팀워크가 점점 맞춰가고 있는 것 같아요. 저희는 지금 연습한다는 생각으로 대회에 임하고 있거든요. 그래서 아마 내일은 더 좋은 경기력이 나오지 않을까 하는데 혹시 모르죠. 오늘 컨디션이 다 좋아서 이렇게 된 걸 수도 아니면은 그냥 이게 저희 실력일 수도 내일 가봐야 알 것 같아요.
Okay, like I told you earlier, actually we're getting better with our teamwork as we play on game by game. So we're actually thinking that we're kind of practicing today. So maybe we'll get better tomorrow and show you better performance. Or maybe we were just lucky and we had better condition today. Or maybe it is our true performance and true capabilities. We'll see that tomorrow.
Well, hopefully it's the form and the practice pays off tomorrow and you guys were able to pick up the 4-0. Congratulations on today. Best of luck tomorrow. We're going to send it back to you guys.
I love that answer coming in from Frozen. That's a creative approach to answering questions.
Maybe it's that. I'll say one of everything.
Look, it could be A, B, or C. I'll leave it up to you to decide what you think is the actual answer. But of course, once again, a well-earned victory. But as we close out the day, let's take a look at the standings. Of course, in Group C, Fnatic end the day in first place with Chaos Latin Gamers behind them at 1-1. And despite going toe-to-toe with Fnatic, Young Generation have yet to find a win. Over in Group D, 1907 Fenerbahce Esport made fans of the Turkish Champion League proud by going 2-0, followed by Hong Kong Attitude from the LMS, and then LJL's Rampage. Now we're going to see who can secure their spot in the play-in knockout stage with our games tomorrow. Things are going to start out with Hong Kong Attitude versus Rampage, followed by Young Generation trying to get their first win of the tournament against Chaos Latin Gamers, with the groups completing their second round robin and playing out any necessary tiebreakers at the end of the day. So, gentlemen, tomorrow, what matches are you most excited for?
I mean, I think everyone's eye is going to go for the rematch between HKA and 1907 Fenerbahce Esports. It feels like one that was very, very close the first time around. And if HKA can take that and both teams continue to beat Rampage, we might be setting ourselves up for a tiebreaker.
I think also Western fans are going to be looking at Fnatic versus Young Generation. I don't think they want another sort of risky sort of, oh, this could be dangerous.
Game.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're looking for a little bit more confidence coming out from the Fnatics.
Well, we'll see what they want to bring us tomorrow. For now, for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for the conclusion of the World's Play-In group stage. Good night, and we'll see you then.
Now hug me, Mark. Hug me.
Young Generation KLG going up against each other here in this clash. On the other side of the groups, we'll see who comes out on top of it. He's almost under tower, flashing forward. My goodness, he hasn't been able to get the rupture just yet, but Monterrey, how far does he want to go? And he goes a numbing.
冰空了，再走出来找到一个速度的距离，但是曼德瑞亚还在继续做在一个 Q 技能下是躲过以后，正面看到了新的拉菲，闪现过去一个倒高上
Tussle is here just way too late, and Kai Wing is able to secure that kill. Now Tussle finds himself without any friend.
no.
Under the tower they go, and it's Unified flashing forward.
It looks like it's going to be the perfect game.
Rivers is gonna back and teleport right on top of it. They are not giving a chance for Rampage to get anything. Down goes Dara. Utari, no, it's going to be Unified.
He would.
He gives them the kill. No perfect game for Hong Kong Attitude, but it doesn't matter. And down goes the Nexus. Oh, the heal is already spent, and he just keeps the cocoon. Doesn't need to spend for that. The teleport coming in, flash away from Deerwolf. And do they have the damage? They do.
Exatamente, vai. Nossa senhora! Que jogada para...
Fnatic with a commanding Game 1 victory.
Here's the unleashed power onto Caps. Jumps away, the flash but no! Caps is clapped! Baron down to 2,000. Ren gets jumped out of the pit. The Baron falls. It's gone to Young Generation, and they've still got members alive. Jess is so low, but 3 members have died. Caps lands the chains onto Nolan. There's the taunt. That is a shutdown on to the Syndra. So as
Reckless ending the game.
Unleashed Tower. Reckless says, I don't care about your kills. I want a Nexus. Baron still going through. It's a double. It's a triple. He's going to get the quadra as well as the Alistair falls. He's having beef for dinner tonight.
Vem pro Penta! Vem pro Penta!
Unify's gonna get one, not quite the quadra for Pattern. Crits to jump in, it is a quadra and an ace for Fenerbahce.
Com quem fica? Vai tentar entrar por ali. Roubou! Barão! Crash!
But is this too little too loud? Holy moly! Frozen steals it away, Japon's gonna jump in, here's Thorgren as well. Fenerbahce gonna close out this game, it's a 50-minute classic, but Fenerbahce stamp their mark on Group D.